A lot of conversations and things on the news are centering at the moment on when we'll be allowed or when it will be wise to go back to life as normal. And it got me to thinking, what is normal? What will we go back to? And is that what we want? Do we want to go back to what we had before, exactly the same? Is that what God would want? For us to go back unchanged to normal? Or could it be that perhaps throughout this time of tragedy and difficulty, that we might be getting glimpses of what is really important and what was damaging and unhelpful about our normal life beforehand? I'm not in any way saying that I'd like to stay in lockdown forever. There's a lot of good things that I am missing at the moment. But I wonder whether this might be a time for us to reflect, a shake-up of sorts, and come up with creative changes that we can make to our lives in light of what we're experiencing, but also in light of the Bible, so that we might live more distinctively, richly, and in line with what God wants for our lives. One thing that I found particularly pertinent during this time is the idea of Sabbath. People around the world have been struck by the impact of all kinds of things that have stopped. There's been lots of damaging consequences of that stopping, but it's also allowed a lot of people to reflect on what we've been missing out on due to our manic, unrestrained busyness. One poet wrote this. It's a poem called Pandemic. What if you thought of it as the Jews consider the Sabbath, the most sacred of times? Cease from travel, cease from buying and selling. Give up, just for now, on trying to make the world different than it is. Sing, pray, touch only those to whom you commit your life. Centre down. And when your body has become still, reach out with your heart. Know that we are connected in ways that are terrifying and beautiful. You could hardly deny it now. Know that our lives are in one another's hands. Surely that has become clear. Do not reach out your hands. Reach out your heart. Reach out your words. Reach out all the tendrils of compassion that move invisibly where we cannot touch. Promise this world your love, for better or for worse, in sickness and in health, so long as we all shall live. Sadly, I think we as Christians on the whole have lost this value along with the rest of society. Despite the commandment that appears over and over again in the Bible about the Sabbath, we see it as a legalistic, stifling rule. And yet God gave us the Sabbath as a gift for his people. When the Israelites broke the Sabbath commandment, God reminded them, bear in mind that the Lord has given you the Sabbath. He gave them this commandment to celebrate the freedom that he brought them into. It wasn't given as a punishment, but as a gift of freedom. And it was given to everyone, not just to people even. In Deuteronomy we read, observe the Sabbath day to keep it holy, as the Lord your God commanded you. 6 days shall labour and do all your work, but the seventh day is a Sabbath of the Lord your God. In it you shall not do any work, you or your son or your daughter or your male servant or your female servant or your ox or your donkey or any of your cattle or your sojourner who stays with you, so that your male servant and your female servant may rest as well as you. You shall remember that you were a slave in the land of Egypt, and the Lord your God brought you out of there by a mighty hand and by an outstretched arm. Therefore the Lord your God commanded you to observe the Sabbath day. What an incredible commandment. Imagine how powerful it would be if we lived this out in our society. And yeah, we have to be creative in our response. My brother works in a nursing home. They have to be cared for every day of the week. Someone has to work every day of the week. But how could we find ways to build this into our lives in a way that blesses both us and the society around us, and especially our relationship with God as he teaches us how to live? One of my favourite authors at the moment, Marva Dawn, she writes, In an age that has lost its soul, Sabbath keeping offers the possibility of gaining it back. In an age desperately searching for meaning, Sabbath keeping offers a new hope. In contrast to the technological society in which the sole criterion of value is the measurement of efficiency, those who keep the Sabbath find their criteria in the character of God, in whose image they celebrate life. Perhaps as we reflect on the current state of affairs, and as we look back on the old norm, we could learn something of the benefits of stopping and how we might bless the world through keeping this commandment. Christians are known for all sorts of rules and behaviours, but look up Isaiah 56 when you finish watching this and have a look at the characteristics that are listed there as being distinctive of the people who love God and who choose to follow him. Maybe we could accept this gift and show the world a different way, God's way of going through life. I'm going to finish with this comment on the Sabbath day that Gideon Hugh gives us. This day doesn't need your achievement. The world has enough of performance and endeavour. What life desires most is the measured breaths of the unhurried, the close attention of the quiet and the still, the gentleness that comes from being content with what you have.